Board of County Commissioners business meeting. We want to welcome any of you who are in the Douglas County Courthouse or joining us online. Just want to pass on a bit of information regarding how we'll run our Zoom meeting during this time of social distancing. If visual aids are used during the meeting, the presenter will share their screen of the call. Participants will not be able to view them without a computer, smartphone, or tablet. All participants will be entered into the meeting with their audio muted, meaning the commission and the public will not be able to hear you. Participants will be unmuted when their agenda item comes up. We ask that all online presenters use good conference call etiquette and mute their line when not speaking and introduce themselves each time they speak. If you have public comment on an agenda item or under regular public comment, please use the raise your hand function in Zoom. Staff will call on you and unmute you. We ask that speakers give their name and address for the minutes. The county reserves the right to shut off the microphone and remove any speaker from the meeting if they are vulgar, rude, or inappropriate. A recording of this meeting will be available on our website after the meeting. So we will go ahead and get started with the consent agenda. Do either of the commissioners want to pull anything from the consent agenda?
No, thank you.
Nope. And Sarah, do we have anyone in the courthouse with you?
Nope, we don't.
And do we have anyone online who would like to pull anything from the consent agenda?
Not that I'm seeing.
Thank you, Jill. So we will move forward with a vote on the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Commissioner Reed, I will move to approve the consent agenda.
Go ahead and second.
Thank you. And all of those in favor, please say aye.
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 And we will move on to general public comment. Sarah, I'm assuming you're still alone in the courthouse with no one for public comment?
That's correct.
Okay. Jill, do we have anyone online for a public comment?
I'm not seeing anyone, but it's just a reminder to folks to use the raise your hand function if you would like to participate in public comment. Not seeing anybody.
Okay, thank you. We will move on to our regular agenda item, a presentation on the Bioscience and Technology Business Center, the Btbc. Sarah, do we have anyone here to present?
Yes, thanks, commissioners. We wanted to take this opportunity to go into a little bit more information around the Bioscience and Business Technology Center and the upcoming Innovations Park at KU. It is my pleasure to introduce Laverne Epp. He is just a fundamentally strong leader for our community in this area. And I personally find his help and advice very thoughtful, and I'm really pleased that he's a part of our community helping us with this work. And I will leave it to Laverne to introduce the rest of his team. So Laverne.
Thank you, Sarah. Let me just check sound. I assume people can hear me. Great. And Sarah, thank you so much for reading so well the comments that you received from my mom. She does that very well, even after 99 years, so that's great. Commissioners, thank you very much for inviting us to join you this evening and to participate and to talk a little bit about the Bioscience and Technology Business Center and the KU Innovation Park. What we would like to do is first introduce ourselves, and then we'll share a brief video with you, which will provide some historical perspective for the Btbc. And then we'll talk about a few of the pieces of information that were included in the materials that were sent to you in advance. There was a slide deck there, and we'll highlight a few of those things. So again, thank you for inviting us, and we're looking forward to visiting with you here for a few minutes. As Sarah mentioned, my name is Laverne Epp. I am the executive chair of the Bioscience and Technology Business Center, and three of my colleagues are joining me this evening. Adam Courtney, whom you will hear from in a few minutes, is our executive vice chancellor, I was going to say, executive vice president of finance, and Robert Knapp is also joining me. He is also a member of our executive team. He oversees corporate relations, works with some of our companies, and does a variety of community kind of outreach activities. And then somewhat as an adjunct member of our team is Trisha Bergman. Trisha is really a member of the KU administrative team. Her official title is Director of KU Strategic Partnerships. She feels like she's a member of our own management team because we interact with her so much, and she really advises us on matters relative to KU, and you'll understand in a few minutes why that is so important to us. So Trisha Bergman, Robert Knapp, and Adam Courtney are joining me this evening. So we'd like to begin by first saying thank you to you and to Douglas County for its longstanding support of the BTBC. We're well into our first decade of this project, and we've just received some really unique and strong support from the county, not only financial, but in a variety of other ways as well. And to kind of set the stage for what the BTBC is, we'll begin with a short video. And Adam, are you teeing this up?
I think so. Can everybody see my screen? All right. Let me know if you have volume issues. We're good?
Adam, we can't hear, or at least I cannot hear the video.
Nope.
Well, that's not good. Anybody know what I'm might be doing?
It looks like it might be muted on your screen there. It looks like there's an X through the speaker.
Can you hear it now?
No.
No.
When you share a video, sometimes there's a button to press that says audio through computer. I don't know if you've.
Yeah, Commissioner Portillo, you're right. Let me see if I can try to talk you through it because I know I've had to do the same thing. Video settings on if you click. Let's see. I know it's been a while since I've had to do this.
I'm gonna try it again. Anything?
No, try, Adam, you might try under where you got the little microphone that says mute in the left-hand corner. There's a little
Bottom left?
No, on your Zoom screen. You might have to exit out of your share screen. And bottom left, there's a little mute button, right, with the microphone. There's a little arrow next to it, and that's where your sound settings are.
So I have select a microphone, same as system. Select a speaker.
Adam, while you're doing that, let me try something. Can you all hear
More than a
that?
decade ago, Lawrence
Yes.
community leaders
There
had
you
a
go.
bold idea to bring together business leaders, local government, and the University of Kansas to form a unique coalition devoted to economic development. A public-private partnership committed to building a more modern, robust, and resilient economy in Lawrence and Douglas County. Through the combined efforts and support of its 4 founding stakeholders, the City of Lawrence, the Lawrence Chamber, Douglas County, and the University of Kansas, the Bioscience and Technology Business Center was born. Its mission? To reshape the local economy and generate high-paying jobs by creating, recruiting, and growing innovative companies clustered around the strengths of the University of Kansas. Today, Btbc has grown from a small incubator on KU's West Campus into a region-wide ecosystem supporting innovation, entrepreneurship, and the commercialization of new technologies. A vibrant part of the regional economy, Btbc's nearly 60 high-tech and bioscience companies represent more than 375 high-wage jobs and $22 million in annual payroll. After 10 years of growth, the demand for Btbc's specialized facilities, services, and support is higher than ever. Thanks to the combined efforts of its founders, bolstered by a growing alliance of public and private organizations, including the Kansas University Endowment Association, the Kansas Department of Commerce, and the U.S. Economic Development Administration. BTBC will soon break ground on its first graduate expansion facility. Phase 3. Strategically located on KU's West Campus, Phase 3's nearly 70,000 square feet of specialized wet lab, offices, and shared spaces will soon be home to 250 new high-tech jobs at some of Kansas's most innovative and fast-growing bioscience and technology companies. More than just a building, Phase 3 is the next step towards a new era of sustainable economic growth and resilience in Kansas. The creation of the KU Innovation Park. A dense concentration of innovation and entrepreneurship supporting infrastructure, services, people, and amenities, the park will support a diverse mix of startups, private industry, government agencies, and KU research, bringing an additional 2,500 high-wage bioscience and tech jobs to Lawrence. With the creation of the KU Innovation Park, BTBC's bold founding vision comes into focus. An entire community working together to forge a strong, diverse, and resilient economy to improve the lives of all Kansans, now and for decades to come.
Commissioners, thank you for indulging us. We'll proceed now with the presentation. Adam. Adam, you're muted.
What about now?
Yeah, now we can hear you.
I need to get rid of my volume issues here. All right, thanks, Laverne, and thanks to the commission for having us in today. And we thought we would cover some of the aspects. A lot of it is covered in the video, but some of the other aspects of BTBC. First, wanted to say thank you for your continued support, stakeholder support, but also financial support, and just kind of run through how the county financially supports BTBC. So operationally, the county provides $200,000 to BTBC annually, which matches the city and the university's contributions. This is vital support for us to continue our mission of creating, recruiting, growing, and retaining tech and life science companies by leveraging the assets of the university and the community. So it's really important that this funding helps us support these businesses and helps continue to let them grow. In addition to that, several years ago, the county partnered with the city to provide us with a small incentive fund, and BTBC leverages that to assist companies with things like equipment, workforce grants, rent subsidies, and some of their other needs. So this is really important funding for our companies, which are small companies and not generally able to access some of the incentive programs that the city and county have that are more traditional to bigger opportunities. So it's really important. And then finally, the county has provided in the past capital investment for BTBC to go out and develop its real estate assets as well. And so most recently, the county agreed to a $375,000 commitment over a 5-year period, which matched the city's funding as well. We were able to turn that $750,000 into about $9.5 million from the EDA and the Kansas Department of Commerce combined. So really important, and without that funding, wouldn't be able to go and build phase 3, which is really, really vital. BTBC's real estate assets after phase 3 is developed will be about 40 million. So pretty significant real estate assets that the county's helped us invest in. And then finally, just to talk about BTBC's private public funding ratio. Currently, we're about 68% private and about 32% public as projected in 2021. And then when phase 3 comes online, we'll push that percentage to about 80-20 post phase 3. And at any time, if you guys have questions, feel free to jump in and we'll answer those as we go. And so what you're seeing now is a metrics chart is how we track our success about achieving our mission. As of February 2021, we have about 57 companies, 406 direct jobs with about $24 million in annual payroll. We've included the induced, but we don't track those as closely. That's more of a a squishy metric, and we try to go with direct jobs because we can actually track those with our companies. And then the next slide, you can kind of see our growth through our almost 11 years of existence from 2010 to 21.
Adam, can I stop you there? Can you go back to this, Commissioner Kelly? Can you go back one more slide? But can you talk a little bit about the difference between what's happening here in Douglas County and what's happening in Kansas City and with the KU Med Center? And would these numbers be different if they just isolated Douglas County?
Yeah, I mean, the metrics we do have here show the incubator at the Med Center as well. I don't have that broken out separately in front of me, but I would say, you know, the majority of the jobs between graduate and Btbc Lawrence jobs would probably be over 300 of the jobs that we're showing in this chart. And Laverne or Robert, if you have a better idea, maybe jump in and help me there. But this is primarily Lawrence, but does include a smaller percentage of KU Med Center jobs as well.
Commissioner Kelly, the last that we looked at this was right before our board meeting some weeks ago. And I think the total head count at the KU Med Center incubator there was between 50 and 60 jobs. So you'll see the rest of the jobs are all Douglas County.
Thanks, Laverne. So this slide represents kind of the Btbc real estate assets that we leverage for these companies. The top two slides are the main campus or West Campus main facility, and then the phase 3, which is getting ready to be constructed. The bottom two are not owned by Btbc, but managed by Btbc. So we manage the Med Center, and then we manage the West expansion facility out at Bob Billings in Wakarusa. And just since this building is owned by the city and the county, and so we thought we'd get into a little bit of more historics about this building, just to update you guys so you're all aware. We have some new commissioners here, so we wanted to do that. West was a company retention play back in 2010, I believe. The city and the county came together. There was a company here that they wanted to retain, and so as part of that, the company wanted to get rid of the building but still operate in that building. The city and the county issued bonds to purchase that building. And as part of that agreement, Btbc agreed to manage that facility. The original financing model assumed that the company would stay there, continue to operate there, and leverage that space for their growth. However, the company opted out of that lease after 3 years, but did stay in the community and purchased its own building elsewhere. So that company is still here and operating. So that, as an economic development tool, it worked in terms of the retention. Unfortunately, that building's not really built for multi-tenant use. And as Btbc was able to convert that to multi-tenant, it didn't cash flow as expected. And so it never generated the revenue that we needed to support the bond payments. Originally, Btbc had a bond deferment for the first 5 years of that agreement, and then was supposed to take on that bond debt. But the cash flow just wasn't there. And so we went to the city and the county and requested deferment, and we've gotten that. And currently we have deferment through 2022. In terms of economic development impact and the way that buildings work, it's been valuable for us. When Btbc phase 1 was full, we didn't have expansion space. And so we used that building to continue to recruit and create companies. As phase 2 was being built, and then migrated some of those companies over. And now we're in the same situation. We were full in phase 1 and 2. We've used it to create companies and recruit companies. That building's operating at full capacity currently. There's 5 companies over there, 2 of which are expanding into phase 3. And so it's been critical for us to continue to be able to do that. And then when phase 3 comes online, we're going to migrate those companies back over to phase 3, the ones that are expanding. And if those companies didn't have expansion space in phase 3, likely would leave the community because there's no specialized wet lab space here for them. So it's really been important for us as an economic development tool. And then our plan is to migrate the rest of those companies backfill into phase 1 and 2, and then assess with the city and the county the value of that building moving forward in 2022 when phase 3 comes online. Any questions about the West facility and the history of that building? So moving on, phase 3 is our next imminent development, and that's hopefully we'll start pushing dirt on Friday or Monday of this week. And so we're really excited. It's been a long time coming. We had an official groundbreaking last fall. We had to go through the EDA process or public bid process for a contractor. We did that through December, January, and then we selected a contractor. And so it's just been kind of administrative work and getting a contract in place so we can start the construction. The construction is about a 12 to 13 month construction phase, hopefully to come online and at the end of first quarter 2022. So we're excited about that. You can see the building's about 66,000 square feet of office, dry lab, and specialized wet lab space. And it does have a conference facility in there as well. It'll occupy about 7 to 12 companies with 200 to 250 employees and about an additional 12 to 15 million in payroll. And we're about 62% pre-committed on that space right now, and we expect to be way further beyond 75% by the time it opens. So really good progress there. And that kind of leads us into our next phase in our transition. We're going to start transitioning our branding as well at some point into the KU Innovation Park, which was mentioned in the video. That development you can see is pictured here and includes 10 plus buildings with an additional 72 to 85 companies with 2,000 to 2,500 jobs and another 120 to 150 million in payroll. And so that's really the next phase in development of Btbc, is to transition to the KU Innovation Park. And really the purpose of that is to continue to expand our mission and to continue to build a more modern, diverse, and resilient economy. What's represented here in this chart is kind of the jobs located in the community. And so you can see a high concentration in that retail, food, education column there. And those are great jobs, and we're not suggesting that we shouldn't continue to grow those as well. But you can see that line there kind of indicates the average salary or income for those jobs. And you can see the group on the right is primarily where we grow jobs, and it's the highest pay and quality jobs in terms of pay. And so we're really focused on driving that up, and that yellow bar kind of forecasts where we're going to be in 2035 in terms of jobs. And you can see that yellow bar is going to grow. The others are going to go down, not because we're losing jobs in those areas, but they're going to be a smaller percentage of the economy, diversifying the economy and making it more resilient. And then lastly, we just wanted to show you a map of the area we're talking about, just so there's no confusion. It's 23rd and Iowa. You can see that map in the top left-hand corner there, where it says KU Corporate Innovation Parks, primarily where we're focused. The other area where it says retail, housing, and amenities is kind of the area where the endowment's focused on making the park more live, work, play, which is good for driving companies to the business park aspect that we're looking at. So that's kind of the development plan for the West Campus there, as you're looking at 23rd and Iowa. So that's what we have for you tonight. Unless Laverne or Robert or Trisha have anything to add, we'd be happy to answer any questions as well.
This is Commissioner Portillo, and I really appreciate all of the information, and I appreciate kind of the background. You mentioned with that second building that was really around retention of the company in the community, because it didn't generate the kind of leasing revenues that you were hoping for. There's a bond deferment. What happens, and I recognize that was in partnership with the city and the county, with the Btbc being a collaboration between public and private entities and a collaboration of 4 different units. What happens if you don't have full leases at capacity for this phase 3? Who's ultimately responsible for that?
We have an agreement with the university to help backstop that if we don't get to a point where it's sustainable. And fortunately, we're in a rate environment where rates are pretty low. And so that helps de-risk it as well. And we think the building will cash flow anything above 60%. So that's really where we targeted 60%. Beyond that, the universities try to give us a springing lease type option if we have space that's available and we needed to service the debt, that they would commit to taking up some of that space and providing some cash flow for debt service. It's been really helpful, and we're really pleased that they've been willing to partner with us on that.
Commissioner, I appreciate the question. I'd like to add just two small or brief comments to that. Obviously, the park or the BTBC or the park is responsible for paying that debt to make sure that we meet that obligation. Because the city and the county or the university or the chamber are stakeholders does not necessarily mean that if the organization, the BTBC, is unable to pay the debt, that flows to the stakeholder groups. I don't know if that's part of your concern, but that would not necessarily go to the county wouldn't have to pick up the tab. So for instance, because BTBC is separately incorporated and organized, it has its own structure. The second point I want to make on that is that and Adam mentioned before that we're building some real estate assets. While that's not our goal is not to be a real estate developer. Our goal is to create companies and to recruit companies and to diversify the economy, as he indicated. But those assets, essentially, I'm going to use a legal term here, kind of inure to the benefit of each of the four stakeholders, so that if for some reason the organization would collapse, those four stakeholders would be in a position where they could share the value of those assets. There's a little bit of, so there's some real estate, inferred real estate ownership implications there with the way that this is structured.
And one last thing on that, if BTBC were to default on its debt, that debt is collateralized by that real estate as well.
But the university has been tremendously supportive of this. And as Adam said, they're providing a little bit of a guarantee through a springing lease, so that if, for instance, and we fully expect, the demand is pretty robust, but if there's a significant downturn in economic conditions or whatever, and we would not be able to fill that space and to meet the debt payment, the Kansas University Center for Research, which is separate and independent from KU, as you probably know, is the one that provides the springing lease, somewhat guarantee for that. KU is critical to this. I don't know, Trisha, if you want to comment about that as well, since you're very closely connected with the University Center for Research.
I think Simon Atkinson's the Vice Chancellor for Research, and he's incredibly supportive of everything that BTBC has been doing, as is Chancellor Gerard, and helping to grow this innovation park, because it's a win-win for KU. It's a win-win for the innovation park. It's a win-win for the city and for the county. So we really view this as a very collaborative activity where we're all going to stand to benefit as we try to diversify the economy.
So I recognize that BTBC incorporated almost a decade ago now. Can you just help me understand the history of that decision? Why create a separate corporation rather than running it through KUCR, which already in and of itself is a separate corporation?
Should I take that, Adam or Robert? Do you guys want to? No?
You go for it.
Yeah, okay. Actually, the inspiration for the creation of the BTBC, which was originally called the Douglas County Biosciences Authority, that was the original name of it, was created as a result of the Kansas legislature passing fairly significant infrastructure grant funding to build out the economy. And so the city leaders, the county leaders, the chamber leaders in KU, Chancellor Hemingway was the chancellor at the time, came together and said, we ought to do that on a smaller scale. And we ought to get a portion of that grant funding, which we got. About $3.5 million of it was used to create and to support the phase 1 project. The thing that created, the thing that created was a really unique coalition of government, business, and academia, which has worked fabulously well. And it's partly because each stakeholder group, each 4 stakeholder group has a board representative. Commissioner Kelly is our representative on the board. and all of those stakeholders collaborate together so that nobody's necessarily taking all the risk. The risk is shared, and all of the interests, as diverse as they are also shared. And so that's what's made it work really fairly well. I don't know that I knew it at the time, but over time we've learned that other communities have looked at this and have contacted us and said, how do you do that? How do you pull that off with all of those diverse stakeholder interests? And the fact is that they all just collaborate together, and the greater purpose is of common interest to all of them. Did I answer your question?
You
Commissioner
did.
Portillo?
So it sounds like the risk is pretty fairly spread out. What about then when there is profitability for the corporation? How does that then work?
So Adam, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, BTBC is a nonprofit. As we move forward and you're looking at continued development, I mean, the plan is to take any profits and turn those back into, the assets to continue to turn that development and continue to grow those companies here. And so, we can't really scale the park without those revenues that we're generating. And so that's the goal, is just to take that capital and turn it back into real estate development that supports growth.
We also use some of that margin, and it isn't, if you looked at our balance sheet, you'd think, oh, you're not making any money. But if we do have excess cash flow in any operating year, we often, and Robert, you can speak to this, we often use it to help some of our early stage and startup companies. In fact, one of our very first companies that started with 3 employees, this was, 7, 8 years ago, has now grown to almost 25 employees, and we have helped incentivize them along the way in small ways. Sometimes it's a rent discount, a little rent discount. Sometimes, as Adam mentioned, we use it for them for workforce development. So we really try to work with these companies and try to support them in any way that we can. Not only do we want to start them or do we want to recruit them, but we want to help them grow. And we've seen most of the growth that we've had in this past year, for instance, in a really difficult year economically, is a result of our companies growing rather than our just creating a whole bunch of new companies that hire people. So Robert, maybe you want to comment about that just a little bit, because it's a great question.
Yeah, and I think the comment, and you alluded to it, we work with a lot of these companies in a lot of different ways. And one of the ways when I was brought on was, I served as a chief operating officer for a publicly traded company for 7+ years. And so to be able to sit down with some of these smaller companies and talk about where they are in their maturity and life cycle and growth curve, if you will, and how do they operationalize an idea, has been, I've been doing that now with 2 or 3 companies over the last 3 to 4 months that I've been here. And so that's, I think, hopefully that creates some sustainability and increases the odds of success for some of these smaller companies. That's certainly what we're trying to do. And then we try and navigate back to also, even with KU, in terms of collaboration around research opportunities or ways that they can plug in. And many times that's just talent and internships or employees that end up joining some of these companies. So it's a really good process that certainly I've enjoyed in the first 3 or 4 months I've been on board.
And maybe if I can add one additional comment from our perspective, a lot of these companies start right with inside our 4 walls, and it's faculty or postdocs or graduate students, and they're just beginning to think about it. So having the Btbc, as we kind of help mature those companies within the university, having the Btbc or the Innovation Park be a landing place for them is an absolutely tremendous asset. So we transition our own activities down, whereas KUIP, Btbc begins to pick up their activities. So that company has a supportive structure throughout their kind of early higher risk sort of stage.
So I really appreciate the kind of overall investment, both in funds and in time, and recognize that this creates a payoff in a lot of high paying jobs, which is fantastic for our economy overall. How are we making sure that those investments are really made in equitable ways? We know that jobs in the sciences and these higher paying jobs tend to be disproportionately held by white men. And so what kind of efforts does the BTBC undertake to ensure that women and people of color have access to these resources and have the kind of mentorship that they need to really succeed in this space?
Robert, do you want to, or Adam, or I can take it too. Go ahead, guys.
Yeah, I mean, I think we work across with all people, and we don't have any specific programming at this point, but it has been something that we've talked about, especially in terms of leveraging our incentive dollars for programs like that. And it's something we've been working with our stakeholder partners, mostly the city at this point, as we work on the economic development strategic plan with them. That's been one of the areas of focus for us. And so while we don't have any formalized programming at this point that highlights diversity and inclusion, those are things that we're looking to mature in terms of our operations at this point.
So maybe not just in programming, but can you shared quite a few numbers as far as the number of companies that were developed, the number of jobs. What kind of racial and ethnic and gender breakdown do you have as far as owners of those companies, the entrepreneurs, as well as the actual jobs themselves?
I don't know that let me take that one. I don't know that we track the number of minority jobs in our companies, but we do know, and we do track some of the co-founders, and we have a number of companies that were co-founded by women. We have a number of companies that are co-founded by by people from minority groups. And so we work closely with them and really try to help grow their companies and do well. But we don't, when we ask for job information, which you saw reflected in our metrics, we have not generally asked for the breakdown of either gender or minority groups or that kind of thing. But we have some, and we're working with 2 or 3 now very early stage companies who have, women co-founders, and, they're actually doing really pretty well.
Do you think that those would be data that you might be able to collect in the future?
Sure. No, absolutely we can. And Adam mentioned, I think, that we don't officially have a program, but we've been actually talking with the city of Lawrence on this and kind of focusing on some of the diversity training that they have and applying some of those same kinds of things to the work that we do, so that our sensitivity is heightened to those kinds of interests in the community. So I think as we kind of grow and transition into the park, we'll do that better, and we'll be much more mindful of it than probably we have been in the past.
Fantastic.
By the way, the city has offered to assist us there. We've had communication with Craig Owens about this. I think, Sarah, you've been involved, some of that as well. And so they've been very helpful in saying, if we can help you here, or you might consider this. And so those are the things that we're working on now. And we've actually proposed, 5 or 6 things that we're going to be tracking in the future.
Thanks for coming. This is Commissioner Kelly, and really appreciate the presentation. I just have a couple of questions, and maybe I'm ignorant to but when I first heard about the BTBC, the idea was that we would incubate companies and then they would leave the BTBC and grow into other places in our community, right? And we've seen that in a number of instances. But as we continue to develop facilities, is that a shift in thinking that maybe we need to expand on the innovation campus, or is that still, or are there 2 things happening there?
Yeah, there are actually 2 things happening there, Commissioner Kelly. I don't know if you remember the bar graph that was in the package of materials, but we track both the companies that we help create and that we recruit, and that kind of reside in our our system or in our buildings, but we also track companies that have graduated. And so you'll see some of those represented in that bar graph. What we've learned over the last 10 years is that companies like being close to the university. We're on the bus line. Some of our companies have learned to access the university's assets through collaborative research, through talent acquisition, and all of those kinds of things. And as we have developed the model, we probably graduate fewer companies today than we did in our first 5 years, partly because they just want to be close geographically to KU. And so you see the park planning, and the idea and the concept of the park planning is specifically for that reason, to allow clustering and to allow the proximity of both companies, one to the other, but also to the university's resources, but also to state agencies that we have begun to recruit to Lawrence and find a home here. So that's kind of what has developed over time. And so that's really where we're headed now with the model. Adam, do you want to comment about that as well?
Yeah, I mean, the other aspect of this is companies that need specialized wet lab space. I mean, there's just not that much of it, not only in Lawrence, but in the Kansas City region. And so you're talking about as these companies grow, if we're not developing that available space, there's no place for them to graduate to anyway. And so they would have to leave the region and maybe head to an Austin or a Boston or Silicon Valley or somewhere where there is that space. And so, but for Btbc's space, there's really no place for those companies to go to start and then to expand and graduate to. And so that's kind of the purpose of some of the Btbc space. And like Laverne said, it's the clustering of the companies and being together. If you show the impact of that, and if you look at the university research parks, and that's one of the things that helps them grow is the clustering of those small companies, which attract bigger companies that want to be close to them and maybe acquire some technology that's being developed in those small companies that the big companies aren't willing to invest in. And so it's a kind of an R&D shop for those big companies to come and look at technologies of the university and those small startup companies. And so it drives in some of those bigger companies that want to be close to that as well.
And as you all know, wet lab space is expensive to develop. So the typical real estate developer that would be in and around Lawrence would probably not want to make that kind of investment. And we're willing to make that kind of investment, particularly with the assistance of the county and the city and the state that has helped us with that. And so it allows Lawrence and Douglas County to kind of be in the market for recruiting companies that need wet lab space, where we might not be if we didn't have those kinds of assets.
Thanks for that. My second question sort of has to do, you mentioned that maybe other governmental agencies are coming to you and saying, how do you do this?
Yeah.
And one interpretation of that is that they're asking that question because they want to do this. Another interpretation could be they're like, why do they do this? And so and then I hear you mention that it's the city's economic development plan. So I'm just interested. I mean, I can see the benefits for Douglas County for being engaged in the work, but seeing how many counties don't do this, and it's the city's economic development plan, I'd just love to hear you comment a little bit about, why it's so critical that the county play a role in this work, and if it's the city's, we don't have an economic development plan,
Right.
Just would like you to comment on that.
Okay, thank you. And I appreciate the question. We do work fairly carefully and are mindful of the city's economic development plan. The university is also developing an economic development program that we tie into. And also the chamber is also doing that. So we want to be reflective of the stakeholder interests whom we represent. So we try to take bits and pieces of all of that and try to coalesce that and make it work. So I think that would be the first comment I would make. The second one, your question's a good one. Do people check this out because they want to know why we would do this, or how it works? The fact is that Lawrence and Douglas County is a fairly small economic regional area, and for Lawrence and Douglas County to partner together on this, I mean, it really requires all of them. Requires all of us. Otherwise, we don't get it done. Let me give you an example. Adam mentioned, or on one of his slides, was the city county incentive fund, with each city in the county contribute some small dollars that we can use to help incentivize our companies. That was the inspiration and the idea of a former county commissioner. And that it's been fabulously successful because we use those funds. We often leverage those funds with the Kansas Department of Commerce, who matches some of that money from time to time. And so we use that money to grow, opportunities for our companies. But it was a county commissioner who had that idea. And former county commissioners have been very engaged in helping. For instance, a former commissioner, as we were laying out the plans for the park, emphasized the importance of green space in the park and being mindful of the importance of the environment and green space. And so not only do we get funding from the county, there are many other ways that we get support and ideas from the county that is really pretty important to us. We would really hate to lose that partner.
Well, maybe someday we would say that the Women and Minority Recruitment Program to the Btbc or Innovation Park was the idea of one of our county commissioners, because I think that, where our county commission is still figuring out really where those priorities are for us. And I don't want to speak for my colleagues, but I do think that's something that we all feel very strongly about and would really like to see as we come back to budget time, some real sharp focus on that type of work. Because while economic development is important, I think we also think, lifting up, I don't want to call them vulnerable populations because they're not necessarily vulnerable, but they are marginalized populations. And that's really where we need to be spending our government dollars to make sure that we're expanding the breadth of economic development, that it's not for the few and the privileged, but it's for all. And if we can put dollars to that, I think that really aligns very well with at least where my values are and what I think I was elected to represent.
And if I can just jump in real quick, that's a little bit of the focus of the EDA funding that we got as well for phase 3. And so their focus is opportunity zones. We happen to be in an opportunity zone. And so workforce development opportunities like a lab technician program is something we're looking into to develop non-degreed employment. And so we're looking at workforce development opportunities as well that address things outside the university employment. And so those are things that we're looking at in addition to what you're suggesting we look at as well. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
This is Commissioner Portillo. I do want us to be very careful when we talk about non-degreed opportunities, because we often see kind of tracking happen and who is tracked into higher education and who is tracked into non-degree spaces. Non-degreed opportunities are really important. It's a huge economic driver and a huge social mobility aspect of our community. But it's also really beneficial if we can think about ways that there could be stackable credentials where some of those non-degreed opportunities create a stackable credential into a university pathway. And in particular, with KU being one of the partners for this, I would hope that any kind of educational development we're thinking about how a non-degreed credential could also still result in a pathway to a university degree. Because if we're thinking about social mobility, some of those non-degreed lab technician roles often don't have the same kind of career trajectory as folks who may start as a lab technician to get some background, but then have a pathway through a university career.
Yeah, if I can just double down on that, Commissioner Portillo. You know, we give significant funding to Peaslee Tech, and there's movement in the state legislature for our community support Peaslee Tech in a different way. When we're talking about stackable credentials, it would be great to be able to take that level of workforce and train that level of workforce out at Peaslee Tech and then bring it to the Btbc and the University of Kansas to move it up again. That is rarely done in the state of Kansas. I will tell you that there is a disconnect between our community college partners and our four-year colleges and universities. If we want to be cutting edge, we've got to figure out how to do that. And I think when we're looking at a collaboration, the type of collaboration we're talking about, if there's government dollars in it, that's how we can spur that. That's how we can push that over the edge. And so I know, Trisha, you're shaking your head. Yeah, it's a tough nut to crack with universities, right? But I do think there may be some benefits to Peaslee Tech being outside of the Kansas Board of Regents and giving us some maybe different flexibilities than we've had with other post-secondary institutions.
So Commissioner Kelly, thank you for making my point about the importance of county participation. Because, I mean, the funding is important, yes, but ideas, suggestions, nudging us in the right direction on things like this is also important. And we've benefited greatly from our relationship with the county on those kinds of things.
Commissioner Reed here. I think all of my questions have been answered. Commissioner Portillo specifically asked the question that was on my mind about equity issues. And so I just want to echo what both my fellow commissioners said and really drive home that in my experience, no matter what space you're working in, if the path is about innovation and growth, then equity has to be an intentional part of every layer of that conversation. And if we don't talk about equity issues and we don't talk about the importance of having Black and Indigenous and people of color entrepreneurs and degreed workers and non-degreed workers and all, and if we're not talking about it at every stage of it, then we're forgetting about it and we are not making an intentional investment in it. So I'm looking forward to seeing the growth and hearing more about kind of what the demographics look like of folks who are incubating businesses in our community and really using all of the educational opportunities and partners that are here to facilitate that and make connections with people throughout Douglas County, because we have multiple universities and educational campuses here, in addition to KU, to contribute to that workforce. Thank you all for your time. I really appreciate it today.
Thank you.
And since this is a regular agenda item, I'm assuming that we are taking public comment. Do we have anyone available for public comment, or anyone who desires to participate in public comment at the courthouse, Sarah?
I don't have anyone here at the courthouse for that, but I would take a minute while my mute is off to just I'm really excited about this conversation. I think this turned out really great. And I think, Adam and Laverne, I think, thank you for being open to these concepts as we talk about it. There's a lot of work that the county is interested in doing in terms of, how we focus our time and attention on strategies to help improve all sectors of our community. And so thinking of ways that we can collaborate on that with the other work we do, I think will be really key. And then how does that carry over into the innovation park? Like as we begin to recruit, or companies are interested in coming here because they see the asset that the university has, how can we ensure that they're, that we can hold them accountable or that they can participate in this work? So I think that will be part of that shift as well. So that it benefits the whole entirety of the community. So I just got really excited about this because I think there's some real potential here for how we could continue that collaboration. So thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.
And Jill, do we have anyone online with comments?
Not seeing any raised hands.
Well, thank you all so much for this presentation this evening. We really appreciate it.
And thanks
Thanks for
again
having
for
us.
inviting us. It's good to, we want to invite you to come out to BTBC. I know Commissioner Kelly has been here, but the other two commissioners are always welcome. We'd love to have you come see what we're doing. When the dirt is flying, that's especially fun time. We'll be in contact with you and try to arrange a time when you can come out and see for yourself that some of the things that we're doing, and perhaps even meet some of our young companies.
That sounds wonderful. Thank you.
And thanks again for inviting us.
And I believe the commission is moving on to appointments. We discussed appointments for the Fair Board last week, but I believe that we are ready to do Fair Board appointments this week. Commissioner Reed, are we good? Cool. Would you like to start?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So first I want to say thanks for reaching out to Wakarusa Township folks, which is a shared township between our districts. I had 3 folks who were interested in the Palmyra district, which was exciting that so many people wanted to step up into the role, and had a chance to talk with all of them. I am happy to appoint Cassidy Burton. She is a young person in our community. She works at Boys and Girls Club, so is already doing a lot of work with youth. And in my conversations with her, she was really excited about helping make more connections between the fair, Boys and Girls Club, and other youth-oriented organizations. And we had some great conversations around equity issues and making sure that there are a multitude of outreach efforts throughout the community about how what the kind of things that 4-H does and that the fair has, and that it's not just livestock, and that there's photography and arts and crafts. There's a whole host of things. And so I'm excited to see what she does with outreach efforts, and she's already been doing the work. So she is super excited. And that's it.
That makes it sound like you're moving to appoint her.
Thank you for the formalities. Appreciate that. I was like, what else do I already talked with Sarah about sharing information, so thank you. I moved to appoint Cassidy Burton as the Palmyra Township representative for the Douglas County Fair Board. Thank you, Commissioner Portillo.
And I'll go ahead and second that and bring it to a vote. All of those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And I'm going to go ahead and talk about 2 townships very quickly. First, with Marion Township, Justin Anderson is who I'm nominating for that appointment. Justin has active children in the 4-H club and is excited to be a part of the work. So I move to nominate Justin Anderson to the Fair Board.
I'll go ahead and second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 And then, as Commissioner Reed mentioned, we share Wakarusa Township. And since she had 3 nominees from Palmyra Township, I went ahead and reached out to the 2 folks who are interested from Wakarusa Township. And I am happy to nominate Cheryl Hunsinger to serve on the Fair Board from Wakarusa Township. If I were to spend time reading everything that Cheryl has contributed in the community and around Fair Board activities and the 4-H club, we would probably be here well into the evening, but she has a long history. Her children and grandchildren do as well. So I'm excited for her longtime service to the community to continue, and I would move to appoint Cheryl Hunsinger to the Fair Board.
I will second that nomination.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Do we have any additional appointments this evening?
I do want to thank commissioners for getting those appointments done. Robin, I will make sure to get you all of their contact information. I know the Fair Board is anxious or interested in getting folks engaged really quickly to participate and work on planning the fair. So we will be in contact with all of the appointees and make sure they have that information quickly.
Thank you, commissioners.
We will move on to Commissioner and Administrator Miscellaneous. Sarah, what do you have for us this week?
Thank you, commissioners. My memo is in the packet. I wanted to just remind commissioners that we've been asked to sit in on the Planning Commission retreat, the Board of County Commission Administration at 11 o'clock this Friday. And then immediately after that, we have our first quarter for 2021 judges. We call it the luncheon. I just want to remind everyone, we're not providing lunch. We used to when we would meet in person. So it's bring your own lunch, but we were meeting over the noon hour for our first quarterly meeting of 2021 with the judges. And then I believe that we have a tour scheduled for Commissioners Reed and Portillo of transitions and the cottages over the weekend as well. So we want to make those notices. We do have a work session next week related to our employee health plan overview. And then just a reminder that we are not meeting on March 10th. Included in your packet is a legislative and policy update from Little Government Relations, our representatives in Topeka. So I encourage commissioners to take a look at that. Two other things that did not make the memo. One, I wanted to just give a heads up to commissioners and to the public. Valuation notices should be mailed out this Friday. So just as a heads up, those are in process and ready to be printed, and those are going out this Friday. So that communication with the public on assessed valuation and appraised value will start. And my last piece of information before I talk a little bit about COVID-19, this is bittersweet news for me. So I want to let the commission know that our management analyst, Daviana Humble, who's been working in our office for the last 2 years, is leaving us, and it's bittersweet. She has gotten an incredible opportunity as a management and budget analyst in Wake County, North Carolina, which is a large county in the with Raleigh and Durham. So this is an incredible opportunity for her to further her career and to get some real, needed emphasis in her local government progression. I couldn't be prouder of her getting this work. And as a former budget analyst in a large organization, I know she's got her work cut out ahead of her. And I know that Daviana will definitely, just be incredibly successful in her career moving forward. For the new commissioners, so Daviana started as an intern while I was interim county administrator. She started right before the May 2019 F4 tornado here in Douglas County, and helped. We had an interim emergency management director. Daviana was key to me in that process and helping us manage all of our relief efforts related to that tornado. She did a ton of executive recruitment as an intern, which never happens, that you have those kinds of opportunities, because we didn't have an HR director yet. And so she helped me through those, very important key executive recruitments that we had in this organization. And then it's just continued to be very helpful in a variety of different initiatives, from work with the Human Services Coalition to our unified command planning and investment in those areas, CARES Act. I could go on and on all night if I talked about Daviana's tremendous contributions to our organization over the last couple of years. She will certainly be missed. So with that, my last item would be just a couple things on COVID-19.
Can I just jump in really quick on that one? Sorry, I don't want to interrupt, but I had the honor of having Daviana in one of her very first classes in our MPA program, and was really excited when she came to work for Douglas County in a super selfish, as a resident kind of way. And so bittersweet, it makes complete sense. Super excited that you have this opportunity, Daviana, but you'll be sorely missed.
Yes, and if I could just highlight one more thing Daviana did, Douglas County really isn't in the mural business. And we had our first mural commission And Daviana took that whole process on, and it was just such a great feeling to be there and to see that mural and the focus on equity that was there, and recognizing the importance of that land out there. And Daviana just did a great job shepherding a project that I don't think any of us knew quite what we were getting into. And she just did a fabulous job. She will certainly be missed.
I didn't tell Daviana that I was going to be doing this during miscellaneous today. So I would say, Daviana, if you want to come off mute and say anything, you're certainly welcome to, but I know I've completely put you on the spot. So with that,
Hi, I guess I'll show my face. I just want to say thank you. This has been such an impactful, a positive experience, and impactful and meaningful in ways that, like, I had no idea. Working for Douglas County had just so reaffirmed my decision to go into local government and public administration, and I have found a love and home in county government. And so I guess that's why I'm going to another county government. But I can't overstate how impactful and important this has been, and being able to work with department heads, being able to work with commissioners, and the administrative team has been amazing. So thank you.
thank you, Daviana. All right, if we have to move on. I did want to just a couple updates on COVID-19 and unified command work. We had another forum last night that's been hosted by the health department. So I highly encourage just us to try to, get the word out. Those forums have been really well attended. I think they've been a consistent commitment to having them, is helping to reach a lot of people with just questions about it. They are led by our Equity Impact Advisors team. So specifically folks that have questions about different topics, can make sure that there's an opportunity to get information out and voice out on that. So I encourage commissioners to sort of take a look at that stuff and then help us get that word out. Today, we had our largest yet mass vaccination clinic for phase 1 doses in a combined effort from public health and LMH health and emergency management. The plan is to give up around 2,500 doses today. They probably are wrapping up right about now, I think was the time frame that they had planned to wrap up. So I guess I want to mention that the need for volunteers to help run these efforts is still very, very important. Each of these mass vaccination clinics take hundreds of volunteers in addition to the paid staff that are working there. So please, if you, particularly as the weather gets nicer, if folks want to find opportunities to participate, we encourage them to go to the United Way website and sign up to volunteer. We're just going to, and then because now we are starting to plan second dose clinics. And so second dose clinics that are tied to first round doses that were given at the fairgrounds start this weekend. And so the ability for, actually I should say Friday, I think the first one is Friday. So as we try to stand up both of these clinics, it's just going to demand more and more from staff and volunteer resources. So any help we can get to try to encourage volunteers would be great. And the only thing I wanted to mention is we continue to try to be responsive, listen, and be open to how we can best refine the vaccine interest form. There's additional information on our hub website about, now you can search. It takes about 24 hours, but you can search and make sure your name is in there. Once you've completed it, there is notifications that you receive now. If you put it in now, you will get an email verifying that you have received, that your form has been received, and a host of other ways that we're trying to make that form more accessible and usable and improve our communication on it. I think we're really hopeful that pretty soon here we can formally announce like when we can stand up a call center. We're still working on that work in collaboration with other unified command partners, but we're really close on that project as well. So I just stand for any questions that commissioners might have at this point.
I don't have any questions. Thank you, Sarah. Commissioner Reed or Commissioner Kelly?
I don't have any questions either. To those who did volunteer and emergency management, public health staff that have been out there week after week now, a couple times a week. I hope the weather was a bit of respite this week, and I hope that it will continue to improve and that we can really increase volunteer capacity. So keep spreading the word about that. I wonder if I see Carrie is on the call, if Carrie Britt, if she's available to speak to it, if we have had any conversation on Hank Booth's show recently or any other efforts to really drum up some extra volunteer support, because that's something I'm thinking about, some other avenues besides just social media asks and how to drive more interest there.
Hi, Commissioner Reed. Can you hear me?
Yep, I guess I did have a question. Sorry, thanks for letting me think out loud to you.
Yeah,
Carrie.
great. So we have been on Hank Booth, and I have been encouraging the general world to help get the word out as well. We've been using websites. I'm part of the Douglas County Public Information Officer group. So that's probably like 20 to 30 agencies. And so they've all also been encouraged to push it out through their social media channels and their newsletters. I'll be working on the county. There's a monthly county newsletter, so I'll be pushing it in that as well, which is hopefully will come out Friday. Do you have any other questions?
No, thank you. I appreciate that.
The only thing I'd add is that I think some of our best volunteer recruitment has come through word of mouth for folks who have participated. You know, we continue to just get great stories from folks that are like, this was so great. I had so much fun. People were so grateful and thoughtful. And I'm going to have 2 of my friends come with me next week. And so I just continue to ask, you know, if folks that it takes a lot to stand this up. And, you know, if folks were kind of like, no, maybe they don't need me. We need you. And it's a great opportunity to give back to your community. So thank you for spending some time on that.
I would just want to say, I mean, I agree with Commissioner Reed, just a huge thank you to emergency management and our health department. I spoke to some of our health department staff today, and there's still a lot of anxiety out there just around COVID-19 and the desire to get the vaccine as quick as possible. And sometimes we vent that frustration in ways that I don't want to say they're non-helpful, because it might be helpful to the person that's venting that frustration, but I do want to recognize those, you know, the people that are at the front desk of the health department and are answering the phones there, and you know, I just really appreciate us all having patience and grace continually. It's great to see our numbers go down, but anxiety and just flat right being scared is still out there, and we have to continue to work together as a community. We want to improve our systems. We do. We're trying to improve our systems, and I just thank the public for its patience as we continue to work on that. We certainly should celebrate those vaccination clinics, but also understand that we're always looking for ways to improve. Just ask us nicely. I guess that's what I ask.
Thank you, Commissioner Kelly, for that, because you are right. And I do think that as we go on, there does seem to be, you know, the folks that have not been selected that are eligible in phase 2, you know, there's just rising senses of, when am I going to get called? When does my opportunity come forward? And we know that we just simply do not have enough vaccine to vaccinate everybody all at once, but more opportunities are coming through through pharmacy providers, through other folks to try to get more and more vaccine into the community. I think through the rest of this pandemic, public health will be the lead agency for moving that vaccine through the community. But I also do sense some, we get some tough phone calls here, and I do really appreciate the folks that are on the front end of trying to take those calls, deal with that anxiety. I know Carrie's even dealt with them. We've had some here at the courthouse. And so we do really appreciate everyone's patience and understanding that this is a process that's not completely in our control.
And Sarah, I don't know if this is for you or for Carrie or just unified command altogether. I was trying to help a community member today find, as we increase the number of sites where there are vaccinations, and now with Walmart and Dillon's and, Siegler Pharmacy, I think it might be something to consider on our coronavirus hub of where are the places, because there's some confusion sometimes of, did I get this from Douglas County Public Health? Did I get this from Dillon's? Where do I get my second dose? That's a question I'm hearing come up a lot. If I got my dose from Walmart, can I then go to Douglas County or LMH and get my second dose? So just some consistent communication on that. I know we're always trying to improve that, but I just share that that was something that was communicated to me.
That is really helpful. And I think as we try to stand up a call center, that kind of feedback and what are the questions they're getting, how can we answer them through public communication and information, how can we kind of try to circle back around, I think is something that I'm looking forward for us to be able to get a little bit more refinement on. Carrie, I don't know if you have anything to add.
Yeah, and Commissioner Kelly, that's a great question. And the PIO group is currently working on getting that information on the hub. We've been trying to get information on exactly what pharmacies do have vaccine and that people can get it through those pharmacies. So we're trying to get that list of pharmacies, and I hope to have that on our hub soon.
This is Commissioner Portillo. Thank you, Sarah. And thank you, Carrie, for all of the information and jumping in on a lot of those questions. Do we have any miscellaneous items from commissioners? I don't either. So I believe that brings us to the end of our meeting, unless we have anything else. Okay, so we are adjourned for the evening.
Have a good night, everybody.